Hello and welcome. This is Deanna Laird. I'm with Accounting Fly and I head up the university services here. And I'm glad you have joined us today to talk about the value of an entrepreneurial mindset for accountants. I'd like to thank our sponsor, who is Babson College and their Master of Science in Accounting program. As some of you know, here at Accounting Fly, we have various partnerships in the accounting industry where we really work together to try to highlight career topics that we think are important for you to have top of mind in regarding to pursue an accounting career and to help develop skills to make someone successful. So, if you find this topic around an entrepreneurial mindset interesting, then you may find the Babson MSA program interesting as well. And they're just a logical partner with us on this topic. They have integrated entrepreneurialism into their master's curriculum, and they've really done a great job of it. They've received lots of recognition on their efforts, and U.S. News and World Report, I think for 22 consecutive years, has ranked them as the #1 MBA program for entrepreneurship. And of course, the approach they take flows into their MSA program and their other master's programs also. So when thinking about it, acknowledging the importance of an entrepreneurial mindset, Babson just naturally comes to mind due to the way that they've integrated this thought into their program. And in fact, I found a lot of resources on their site when I was doing research behind this webinar. So they're just really some great thought leaders on this. So before we get too far into the topic, I'd like to cover a couple of items about the tool. First off, on audio, and I hope that your audio is coming through loud and clear. If not, you can always switch to a phone line if you happen to be listening through your laptop or tablet or whatever device you're listening through. The phone line option is available through clicking on the audio section in the toolkit, and it'll provide you a number and code to dial in with. Secondly, you can communicate with me via the question panel, also in the toolkit. If you have any comments or questions, then you can type them in there. I'll see them on my end, and I'll try to address them before we sign off from here. All right, so moving into our topic, I'd first like to kind of talk about an entrepreneurial mindset and entrepreneurship. And I'd like to have you think about what you think of when someone starts talking about this, right? Often, entrepreneurship may not be directly connected or thought of in kind of association with accounting, right? But again, going back to one of our key missions here at Accounting Fly is we really look to bring into conversation career topics that aren't necessarily at the forefront, but are topics that we think are really valuable and important for people to think about and to consider. And we hope to encourage you to think broadly and maybe differently about certain things. Okay, and our topic today so kind of falls into that realm very nicely. So let's do a little exercise here, and I'd like you to think of what the first thing that comes to your mind when someone mentions entrepreneurship. What just naturally flows in and what you start associating with this word. Do you think about maybe someone that starts a business, right? Small business owner, a startup. There's someone out there starting and managing and owning this small business. Maybe think about risk taking, being involved with something new. Creatively approaching something. Maybe something not built on a solid foundation, but maybe people do that because there's high rewards. So risk taking with this high reward aspect. Okay. Or maybe it's innovation that comes to mind initially, like entrepreneurial action around new thoughts and new opportunities. For some of you, it could be a person, maybe someone that you know, with someone who perhaps is charismatic, someone who stands out and really grabs, that you have heard, grabs an idea, makes something of it. Could be, someone who's really robust, gregarious, this big personality. Or maybe some of you a little bit more on the negative side might think about failure, if that is associated with entrepreneurship. This ties back to risk-taking, but instead of risk-taking with high reward, this would be risk-taking where the results were not positive, right? Okay, so think about what kind of pops into your mind. And then we're going to look at common definitions. All right, so how does a dictionary source define entrepreneurship? So I went to businessdictionary.com and I looked up the definition. And here's what they said, at least initially, okay? The first part of the definition, in other words. They stated it as the capacity and willingness to develop, organize, and manage a business venture, along with any of its risks in order to make a profit. The most obvious example of entrepreneurship is the starting of new businesses. Okay, well, I just mentioned a few of those aspects: a new business, risks, profit. All right, so this is a common definition, and I'm not sure if this matches up with what you thought about. All right, and most likelihood it probably did. Survey we have done previously, when we asked people the question, the aspect of someone owning a new business came up as the most frequently thought of attribute. Okay, so in other words, most people thought of a person owning a business. The second most frequently thought of aspect was innovation. Right, and then the third was around risk-taking. All right, so this definition brings in some of those, and I think it's probably a fairly easily acceptable first brush of definition. So before we go further, let's kind of think about that. If this is the common thought, then how does this fit with accounting? And this is where maybe some of the fit by some can be questions like, well, okay, yeah, if I wanted to start my own firm or maybe take over a firm and manage it, yeah, I get it. I would be an entrepreneur, and that's fine. And there's some great opportunities around that. We've talked about, the opportunities in the accounting industry and small and mid-sized firms, and how there's a lot of opportunity for, as people retire and move out, there will be a lot of ownership opportunities in the coming years. All right, so that's real and live. But what I'd like us to think about is that's not all, okay? Because not everybody wants to start a firm, right? Because there are also a lot of opportunities in the accounting industry with really large firms, and they're great opportunities too. Or maybe it's working in the accounting and finance area of a large business, right? Maybe it's government accounting. There are a lot of accounting career paths that don't just lead to owning a firm, right? And they all have, great possibilities, okay? So does this definition, or does the concept of entrepreneurship still apply with accounting? Well, of course, you probably know that my thought is yes, and that's why we're here. So let's go a little bit further, and let's expand this definition. And businessdictionary.com goes on in their second part of the definition to talk about entrepreneurial spirit. And they say that it is characterized by innovation and risk-taking, and it's an essential part of a nation's ability to succeed in an ever-changing and increasingly competitive global marketplace. Okay, well, let's take the first part first. So innovation and risk-taking. Now, there we go again, right? Some of the common characteristics, but it does expand, certainly, beyond the concept of a person owning a business, okay? Let's take a look at that second part of that definition, the last phrase. And boy, this really gets into some broad thinking, I believe. So saying here that the entrepreneurial spirit is an essential part of a nation's ability to succeed in an ever-changing and increasingly competitive global marketplace. Okay, that's you're really pointing at something more, right? So here we talked about owning a business, innovation, risk-taking, but also being a key piece of a nation, a country, being able to succeed, okay? And kind of translate that into businesses, being able to succeed. And the reality is that the environment is one that is changing, which I think we all know, right? And it's becoming increasingly global and increasingly competitive, okay? So again, we might still need to think about the fit with accounting, perhaps. You know, there are, of course, laws, procedures, guidelines that are part of the accounting process and the accounting activities. But when we go beyond the transactional activities of the accounting profession, we also get into the partnership that accountants have with their clients or with the companies that they're working with. And beyond the transactional activities, which of course need to follow standards and laws, we get into the advisory piece to where, you know, accounting has the opportunity and really the obligation to go beyond and be part of, you know, the view into how business is performing and where a business should go, right? So the last definition I want to bring up is something that I think takes it another step. So this definition is from Tim Ferriss, okay? If you're not familiar with Tim, he's an author and a blogger and has a lot of podcasts, he's a podcaster. The New York Times has described him as a cross between Jack Welch and a Buddhist monk. So that's an interesting characterization, I think. But in short, he's a really interesting guy, and he has some interesting things out there on the internet, some entertaining things. But I happen to like his definition of an entrepreneur. As Tim puts it, an entrepreneur isn't someone who owns a business. It's someone who makes things happen. All right. This is getting again into that partner advisory type aspect of where an accountant can be with their clients and with their employers if you're employed by a company or a government, right? Someone who makes things happen, right? In other words, entrepreneurial thinking is not just for those looking to start their own firm or their own business. The thought also goes beyond providing accounting services to startups and small businesses as well, right? Essentially, all businesses of all sizes in all industries, they all need someone who makes things happen. And accountants are in a really unique position to understand the inner workings, the performance of a business, and the ones who can make things happen. But let's get a little more into what characterizations make up an entrepreneurial mindset. Okay? So, you know, we're looking at, well, let's understand what this entrepreneurial mindset means. I think 5 attributes are key as kind of a backbone for how a person approaches things and thinks that can allow them to make things happen. They help make great entrepreneurs, and they help make great business people, including accounting professionals. So there's leadership and the, I guess, predisposition of someone who is really going to take things on, own them, and lead in a direction that is the right direction. They're seeing the big picture and insight into what circumstances mean beyond what's right and obvious in front of you. Okay? Additionally, there's the ability to recognize change, and not only you recognize it, but then also being able to adapt to it and move forward in the face of change. And problem solving is often associated with the adaptability or changing because of business circumstances, but really kind of facing something, facing a problem and learning how to fix it, to get out of the situation and move on. And then lastly, the drive to achieve, even when facing failure. So having the determination to just keep going forward, even if times are tough, because certainly times will be tough sometimes, right? So I think these are a tool set of characteristics and skills really that will allow someone to approach business circumstances, act on them, and then through that recognition and approach and action, create greater value, again, in any type or size of business. All right, so tying down this fit with accounting. Let's go back to something that I mentioned before and thinking about the role of accounting, but where this fits in with the responsibilities as an accountant. So obviously the role of accounting, you're measuring business activities, documenting that information, documenting the results. And this is all really, the documentation is just a way of communicating the knowledge, right, of the activities and performance and threats even of a business. And this knowledge leads to the capability of assessing and the performance, the health of your client or your company, and then from that, making business decisions. It's not just the backward-looking activities, the forward-looking activities, and understanding of, again, the business health, and then being able to look forward on where and what are the decisions that should be made to perform better, right? So essentially, this places accountants as trusted advisors. I mean, the partner that helps to drive this information and understand this information that can lead businesses to understand where they need to go and accountants can help lead the business in that direction. So, going back to Babson, our partner here, they recognize this very definitively, and as they say it's really their mission to prepare students to create value, not just through new businesses, but in organizations of all types. So again, it's just really kind of part of their mantra of how they have set up their programs to help someone be ready to do this. And employers recognize it too. The characteristics of an entrepreneurial mindset really are highly sought after skills in the recruitment side, and aspect of, I guess, your career thoughts. Employers value this skill set that we've been talking about. As I mentioned, I used Babson's website for some of my research, and I found a video where they were talking with an EY campus recruiter. And she said, the EY campus recruiter said that a key point for them is this concept of entrepreneurship. It's something that their firm places a lot of value on, And she said they love it when people have this spirit and come in and challenge the way that they've always done things. And in their mind, that's what helps make EY a better place, right? The challenge and the making sure that you keep on looking at things fresh, and then act on those ideas. And then also in Babson's Entrepreneurship of All Kinds newsletter, and the managing director, her name is Elizabeth Atwater, she wrote about PwC. And at PwC, the quick thinking and adaptability are just as important for the firm as auditing, accounting, and risk management. An entrepreneurial mindset just might be the best tool in PwC's chest. So I wanted to share these thoughts from, two key players, right, in the accounting industry. So EY and PwC, here's some thoughts from them around these skill sets. And it should just underline the value that is placed on an entrepreneurial mindset approach, and hopefully kind of prove the importance of these skills. And I can tell you from my prior recruiting days, from both the client service roles and also in-house finance and accounting roles, these were traits that were often the make or break point on candidates. And when we were in a position of kind of looking at a variety of candidates, all really strong, and when it came down to trying to figure out which were the top ones to receive the offer, it often went back to these very same skills of how they just demonstrated them, and those that demonstrated these skills and capabilities well were the ones that rose to the top. So these skills are really differentiators, okay? So let's look at these skills, these 5 attributes quickly, individually. And what I've done, I've included on each slide some quotes. I really like to look at quotes, and I think quotes can sometimes sum up something very concisely in an interesting way. So I've included some quotes that I think relate to each attribute. And also, I will give the definition as provided by my trusty go-to source, businessdictionary.com. I'll also include a recruitment slant in this and share what we look for when we interview people. Again, I mentioned that these are often differentiators and can really help you stand out in a recruiting situation, but that also means it can help you stand out in your any work or school situation that you're in. It's about performance, and it's about those that are able to demonstrate and practice these skills. Okay, so anyway, hopefully that'll be helpful in situations you may be facing. So leadership. I have two quotes here, obviously, one from Warren Bennis and one from Peter Drucker. I think are pretty spot on. So leadership is the capacity to translate vision into reality. And then Peter is quoted as saying, management is doing things right. Leadership is doing the right things. So leadership involves establishing a clear vision and sharing that vision with others so they will follow willingly, providing the information, knowledge, and methods to realize that vision, and coordinating and balancing the conflicting interests of all members and stakeholders. So it's really leading others to create a result that wouldn't have happened otherwise, right? Leaders bring inspiration, they bring influence for the result of actioning happening on ideas or plans, and driving something to a place, a company or a thought, a team to a goal, an end destination. So from a recruiting standpoint, we would look for evidence of this and someone who could show examples of where they had readily and voluntarily taken ownership of challenging tasks and problems, maybe things that other people avoided, but someone who would grab onto that, own it, and move forward with it, even if it's beyond their scope of responsibilities. And really it was great. It was beyond their scope of responsibilities. So you can ask yourself, do you have any situations like that you can point to? And what are some things in areas that you can practice your leadership skills by taking on something that could be challenging, right? Could be a problem, but you could be the difference maker in those situations. All right, moving on to insight. So the definition is ideas about true nature of something. Knowledge in the form of perspective, understanding, or deduction. So, Helen Keller's quote here that I liked: when one door of happiness closes, another opens. But often we look so long at the closed door that we do not see the one which has opened for us. So it's like, wow, something can be right in front of us that we're looking at, but what about what's right beside it, or behind us, to the side, whatever? Being able to understand the bigger environment, okay, and having that insight, that understanding relationships or things that we used to look for, and someone who could, really kind of shed the light on issues or, circumstances that they were facing, but kind of look beyond what was immediately obvious. And, this can really play out in understanding the customer's needs and thoughts and actions, maybe even helping them understand it, right? Because it is pretty common, I think, for people to maybe, just get a little bit buried in what's immediate and obvious. Moving on to adaptability, the definition is ability to alter itself or responses to change its circumstances or environment. Shows the ability to learn from experience. And I use the definition here from Robert Kiyosaki. When times are bad is when the real entrepreneurs emerge. So times are bad, probably need to change. You need to recognize it and move on. Figure out what to do, right? So the ability to kind of, one, recognize it, but then also act on the recognition, modify goals, modify and change your direction as needed. It's really important. At the same time, you still have to keep focus on what is important, even if you have conflicting demands. But you have to take action to figure out what do we need to change here, and being willing to make that change, because sometimes change can be difficult. So adapt and move on. Creative problem solving is exhibited and defined as initiates and utilizes new ideas and approaches to situations. Creativity is a mental characteristic that allows a person to think outside the box, which results in innovative or different approaches to a particular task. Okay, so that's probably pretty obvious, right? I like this quote from Reid Hoffman. An entrepreneur is someone who jumps off a cliff and builds a plane on the way down. All right, well, that's a good way to solve a problem, right? So the thing here is that being able to, we talked about adaptability, and I think these are associated, but you have to be able to, again, think differently, and if you're in a problem, being able to solve it, and not necessarily rely upon the way you solved it yesterday or a week ago, or maybe the way a team member solved it the other day, right? Think about the best way, a new way to solve it, and determine which is the best way, okay? So being open to new ideas and then, use those ideas to solve the situations that you're in. The attribute of drive, so drive to achieve and determination, and particularly even when facing failure. So it's probably easy to be determined about something when things are all rosy and easy, right? So this determination, this drive to achieve, even when facing failure, I think it's kind of, I guess, the final proof point, right? So you need to be persistent and have the ability to overcome a set of obstacles. So Steve Jobs said, "I'm convinced that about half of what separates successful entrepreneurs from the non-successful ones is pure perseverance." Right? And Nelson Mandela, I love this, "Do not judge me by my successes. Judge me by how many times I fell down and got back up." I mean, both of those are great, I guess, support for the importance behind being determined and just giving it your all and not giving up, continuing on. And again, even if you're facing some really, really tough time, just pushing forward. Now, you have to make sure that you're doing the right thing, right? Keep up that analysis of, what do I need to do creatively, maybe, right? Or do we need to adapt a bit? But the continuation of that process is what is underlying here. Always moving and always improving. And, we pointed out that the entrepreneurial mindset doesn't ever stop. It's just an ongoing process. And when you reach your current goal, that's not the end, right? You just want to keep on going to the next one. But more success, more improvement, and it's just moving along continually. And we used to always look for someone who worked just relentlessly to overcome challenges and difficult obstacles and look for ways to improve results. And that's a really good way to demonstrate that you have this drive that is so important. And one way that it can be, I guess, shared is whether you have experience, a lot of work experience or not, but just maybe it's in your drive to achieve and acquire new knowledge and continued learning and continuing your skills. You're just really persistent on this continuous improvement and drive to achieve for yourself personally. That's a great way to demonstrate that you have this. So what if you don't have these skills that we've talked about? Well, that's okay. You can develop an entrepreneurial mindset. Is it important to? Yeah. We've talked, I think, a lot. Why, right? It's, I think, very important to have these skills. And if you don't have them, well, then you can set your mind on, helping yourself develop them, right? And there are a few ways to go about this. So I listed here the 7 powerful secrets of thinking like an entrepreneur. Okay, and this is by Peter Economy, known as the Leadership Guide. And I think that these kind of summarize what you can do very, very nicely. So you have the power to choose your mindset. All right. If you're thinking, yeah, I don't have it. I don't have these skills. Well, you can make up your mind. You're in control of how you think. So you can be confident that this is your choice. Okay. If it's not your first, inclination, well, practice, right? You have the choice to figure out, I need to develop these skills and I'm going to practice them. I'm going to put myself in circumstances where I'm able to practice them. Or maybe I'm going to take advantage of opportunities that I haven't before. So it is up to you. Be determined. So this kind of goes back to that drive to achieve in a way. But, just really remain steadfast in your goal. Be persistent. Prepare yourself to remain on course. And, build some solid relationships and that will help you out. Dedicate your effort in building and maintaining those strong relationships, and they can help you and pave the way and support your determination. You can also make sure that you are changing, but do so in a smart way. Okay, so this one on slow down to lead is talking about, change, grab onto opportunities to change, but make sure that you're also doing it strategically. All right, and keep things in balance so that you are assessing the right way to go, and you're not reactionary if it causes you to be ineffective. Also, you need to know your health metrics. Okay, so you have business health metrics that we talked about as an accountant, a key team player and knowing those. Well, you have your own business as well. You yourself as a business, you need to understand, your attributes and your underlying foundation, and understand where you need to improve and where you need to move. All right, and then be prepared to face some challenges. Okay, it might be difficult, absolutely, but you know what? If you prepare yourself and set your expectations and your determination, you can face those difficulties and move on. Okay, and then lastly, just make your mind up that you are going to succeed, and dedicate your focus and your efforts to that. So, Paul Graham, who is a venture capitalist, said, the most important quality in an entrepreneur is not intelligence, but determination. And having persistence along with, preparing yourself for the hard work required. You just really need to, as Peter put it, he stated, strategically be prepared for the battle. Okay, so you can, by preparing yourself, by making up your mind, being determined, you can accomplish these goals. All right, well, that's the material that I had today. I want to thank you for joining me on this, and I welcome you to and invite you to send me your comments and questions at Deanna@accountingfly.com. That's BEANNA@accountingfly.com. Let me know what you think, and let me know what questions you have. I'd love to hear your perspective. But again, thank you for being here. Again, I want to thank Babson College MSA program for sponsoring this for us, and I hope you all start practicing those entrepreneurial mindset skills. Take care.